All right, everyone, welcome back to the Old Switcheroo, where we're talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jaymo. Join us as we power slide our way through all 200 plus games in the Nintendo Switch Online Retro Catalog. Today, we're going to be boosting into 3 games that are very beloved, and that's going to be Super Mario Kart, Mario Kart 64, and Mario Kart Super Circuit in an episode that we are calling Rainbow Road Warriors. And Mike, speaking of Road Warriors, yes, that is a potentially offensive Australian stereotype. We have a very, very special guest, someone who's actually incredibly special to you. Would you like to introduce her?
Yeah, my wife Kat has decided to join us for this one as we delve into some racing games.
How you doing, Kat?
Hello, I am Kat. I'm gonna do my plugs now.
Yeah, you're a cross stitch influencer.
Well, I'm trying to be. So I have a philosophy. I'm trying to do the Instagram thing. I'm hoping 2024 is a better year for this. But I am on all the socials under KatCanSew. That is cat with a K.
KatCanSew. Now, how long have you been doing cross stitch? Because like I literally can't sew a hole in my sock. Like I do not know how to fuse 2 pieces of cloth together. So I am internally impressed by people who can do what you do.
So I've been cross stitching since I was 13. So we're not going to discuss how many years that is, but we will say maybe 20.
Sure.
And I have been sewing. I do cosplay and some dressmaking, which I have been doing since I was about 17.
What's your favorite thing to cosplay / cross stitch? That's what I'm calling cosplay costume making.
So anything geeky. Right now I am currently working on a Critical Role NPC character cosplay.
Ooh, that's the D&D podcast, is that right?
That's the D&D live play that's been going for about 8 years.
My cousin's super into that. Yeah. I didn't know you listened to that. That's cool. Do you play D&D, Kat?
I used to. I need to find a
Yeah.
new game. I was getting back into it and then COVID happened. So I just need to find a game. I just need to get now that things are getting better
Yeah.
world wise, I am gonna try and join an adventurers league and maybe hopefully through that find a regular game.
So my favorite tabletop game is Monster of the Week. Have you guys heard of it?
I
No.
think so, yeah. It's a fairly recent one, right?
Yeah, it came out a couple years ago. Mike, you're going to get a kick out of this. It's based on supernatural daytime television. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer, X-Files, Supernatural, and your goal is not to like survive so much as your goal is to make a good episode of television. And so as part of the rules, like you get to make up backstory for other people's characters on the fly. So you can be like, oh yeah, that's like the time you saved me from that roid rage alligator, and like the other player just has to yes and now that's part of their backstory. You know what I mean? It's super, super fun.
It also allows for not having to have a campaign.
Yeah, yeah. I've played it once. It was my favorite night of tabletop gaming I've ever done, and I'm super eager to get back into it. And also speaking of rolling the dice, can I just ask? 'Cause I just don't even know, how did you two meet? Because you've been married for several years now.
We met at Star Wars Celebration in LA in 2010 or 2007
2007.
first. Yeah.
Were you
2010
cosplaying,
was
Kat?
Orlando.
Wait, you were cosplaying as Lando, or Mike was cosplaying
No.
as Lando?
We met in 2007. I came back out again in 2010 for Star Wars Celebration in Orlando. And that was
Orlando.
the trip where I got to know Mike better.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay, in my defense, go
Oh,
ahead.
in your defense, they sold shirts that where it had the word Orlando, but then it had
Calrissian.
Lando standing in front of it to block out the R, so it just said Orlando.
That's beautiful. Okay, I was gonna say you have a Star Wars event in Orlando, and it's just confusion / great branding is gonna happen. Well, so guys, can we jump into our first game today already?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's talk about Super Mario Kart on the SNES. It was released in 1992 for for the Super Nintendo. I'm going to read the official description on the Nintendo Switch Online emulator. It says, select one of 8 characters from the Mario series, offering a variety of different driving styles, and take on 3 championship cups in 3 different kart classes. Win enough and you'll unlock a 4th circuit, the Ultra Tough Special Cup. Crossing the finish line in first place isn't an easy task, though, as each track has unique obstacles to conquer and racers can obtain special power-ups that boost them to victory. For a different kind of challenge, take on a friend in multiplayer races or go head-to-head in the battle mode arena of your choosing, where the object is to pop your opponent's balloons before you lose your own. With more than 15 tracks to master and nearly endless replay value, Super Mario Kart is classic gaming with some banana peels thrown in for good measure. Pretty cute description. Let's go to our kind of cover art comparison, because oftentimes people's first impressions of these games was seeing the box on the shelves. And we're going to start off with the Japanese cover. It occurred to me we should always start with the Japanese cover because most games are released in Japan first. So, Mike, Kat, what do you guys think about this illustration of Super Mario Kart on the Super Famicom system?
That is really cute and adorable. And
yeah, for those who aren't on YouTube, you basically have all the racers kind of driving towards the camera in sort of like a big cluster at the turn. But you said it was cute, Kat. What strikes you as adorable here?
It's just I really like this animation style.
Yeah. It's very like kind of early 90s, late 80s sort of look to it.
Yeah, they're kind of squishy, like everything's kind of a little bit more rounder. Where to the late 90s and everything got to very sharp angular lines, and not a fan.
It does remind me of like the animation style for like the cartoon.
Yeah, it's super cartoony. The image, I would say the image is a bit crowded, but that's kind of the point because you have all these racers kind of colliding into each other as they make a turn.
They do get all 8 on there, so that is nice.
Yeah, it's impressive. And, there's also little subtle details, you can see in the background, you have like, a seashore and there's some rolling hills. So it gives you a sense of like, you're going to be driving through, some level of varied environments, I would say. And then you got Luigi collecting the coins and the little item boxes on the ground. I like it.
Donkey Kong looks weird.
Well, that's not Donkey Kong, it's Donkey Kong Jr.
Okay, Donkey Kong Jr. looks weird.
They are distinct characters. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but the Donkey Kong sequel has you playing as Donkey Kong's son, saving Donkey Kong. So can we talk about the North American cover? Because it is, by and large the same, but I think it's a little worse. What do you guys think? Like, I guess I'll put them side by side for you.
It has the same issue for me as the game.
And hurts your eyes to look at?
Yeah. Honestly, I have no idea if my issue with this game and the problem with my eyes is because it was designed for CRTs.
Is that something you're not used to?
No, I'm wondering if the color quality didn't translate as well to the old TVs as it does to the new digital like TVs. As such, the color quality is just sharp enough that it hurts my eyes. But on an old TV, it kind of got muted a little bit and it would have been fine.
Right. Yeah, everything wasn't so bright and like sharp. As you said, things were a bit rounder back then.
I think it's just like it is that they really super saturated the colors.
Yeah. I miss the yellow background of the Japanese cover. And I think Yoshi, it's like, so for those who can't see it, it's pretty much the same image, except, you got a little bit more detail. Toad is pegging Bowser with a red shell, and Koopa Troopa is about to run over a banana, and Yoshi is just facing dead on the camera, and I think it just doesn't strike me as well drawn. So even though they added more elements to it, I'd prefer the Japanese cover, and I think Kat pretty obviously does too. Mike, what about you?
I would say I think I prefer the Japanese cover as well, because I think on the US one it doesn't feel like these are all meant to really be in the same drawing. Like there's variances on like there's no shading on Yoshi on the US cover.
Right.
Whereas there is on the Japanese cover, but even on the US cover, like Mario and Luigi up front have more shading, and then it kind of feels like less detail was paid the further back you go, and it results in it feels much closer like all the characters were copy and pasted on here
Yeah.
rather than being one unified thing. To the point that like Koopa is I'm almost willing to believe that they copy and pasted it out of like the original Japanese asset
And
Yeah.
flipped
I
it.
mean, it's
and just
close.
flipped it.
But even Mario has got no shading either, and he's right at the front.
He's got a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think unanimously agree the Japanese cover is a bit more appealing, I'd say. So let me give you guys some Super Mario Kart trivia. It was published by Nintendo and it was directed by Tadashi Sugiyama, who Mike, we actually played a game of his, but I didn't realize it because he published it under a pseudonym. He went by Sugayan and only Sugayan when he directed Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, which was a game I very much enjoyed. And it also was directed by Hideki Kono, who directed Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, including the Booster Course Pass, which just released its 96th track for Mario Kart 8. So that has 96 tracks in it. Can you believe that? You guys have played this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a kind of a trick question, Mike. Kat, do you know that Mike cheated on me with the booster course pass here? He was supposed to wait for me to play the LA course, and then I guess he played it in Australia because you guys got some of our potential listeners to download the booster course pass.
Yeah, so while we're staying in Melbourne, this was kind of the game we were playing because the friends we're staying with are very much racing game people, but they play like I have no idea what even they play.
Kat, I have a question because Mike kind of painted this as well, I had to play without you because it'd be rude not to. Whose idea was it to play the LA track? Did your friends and family pick it and Mike just had no choice, or did he go straight for it because he'd been dying to play it like I had been?
Honestly, I don't know because when we were playing in Australia,
Yeah.
I may have mostly been cross stitching because I was trying to finish a project.
We played through every single track. So what had happened is we'd played
Wow.
through the initial ones,
Yes.
and then it was just
Well, there's more.
there's more. And it's like, wait, seriously? It's like, yeah, like there's this many. And it was just like I gave them a full like Nintendo Switch Online pitch. And so when they
Right.
added it, it was okay, let's go through and do all the rest.
So did you guys play all 96 together?
Yes, we played every single cup.
So, for those who aren't aware, this booster pass we're talking about, you get it if you get the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, or you can buy it separately for I think $20, and it doubles the number of courses in the game. And most of them are redos of previous tracks, but they get better graphics and anti-gravity sections. It's honestly pretty freaking cool. But Mike, doesn't it kill you that there's no like 96 race tournament mode or even like a create your own cup? Like I want to do a cup of just rainbow roads. You know what I mean?
You
Wouldn't that
can't
have been fun?
I would say I think you can do that because you can do multiplayer where you're selecting and you cannot do more than sorry, you can't do fewer than 4 races when you do
Right,
that.
but
So you can select any 4.
oh, can you?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you had to select them by cup. Okay.
No, when you go into that, you can do that. And you can also select you can do up to 48 games, which I do not have nearly the energy to do that as like one go.
Oh yeah, so how many sittings did it take to get through all the tracks?
Honestly, we did all the original stuff one night and ran out. And then like
And then
2
did the
nights
other ones.
later, we
Yeah.
did all the new ones.
Very cool. Yeah, so this expansion pack was directed by Hideki Kono, who also directed the first Super Nintendo game. And Mario Kart is a really unique game entry because it created a genre. There was no kart racing game before Mario Kart, but unlike a lot of other genres, it's kind of the undisputed king. Like Crash Bandicoot, Sonic the Hedgehog, they've had their different kart racing games, and some are more successful than others, but none have ever come close to the success of the Mario Kart series. According to vintageisthenewworld.com, Mario Kart is the best-selling racing game franchise of all time with 152 million copies sold. Any guess, you guys, on what the second most popular racing game franchise is? Kat, I don't know if you've played it, but Mike, I know, definitely has played it.
I want to go Need for Speed.
Oh my gosh, you called it. You did. But here's what's crazy to me. to refresh your memory, Mario Kart 152 million, Need for Speed 150 million. I cannot believe it's even that close because I've never talked to anyone who's not Mike about Need for Speed.
This is
But
what I
Mario
used to
Kart.
play.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was a PC gamer.
Right.
We never owned consoles in our household until my
Okay.
brother got a PlayStation 2.
And
And
so Need for Speed was a game you played?
Need for Speed and Road Rash were my racing games that I used to play because that's what my brother liked.
Wow. That's so funny because like Mike as a young lad played Need for Speed and Road Rash.
Yeah.
So you didn't even know it, but your stars were already aligning. But still though, I mean, there's no Need for Speed theme park ride. Like the Need for Speed movie. Actually, Mike, Kat, have you guys seen the movie? Apparently it's pretty terrible.
Actually, I think we watched that in Australia.
No, did you?
Yes.
What'd you think of it?
Um,
Not much of it.
not terribly much. I think I recall it being somewhat cliche. Like the best thing going for it is I think that motivated us to watch Gone in 60 Seconds later.
Oh, I've always wanted to see that. I've heard that's fun.
We watched a lot of
Car
car
movies.
themed movies, yeah, because I introduced her friends to Death Race 2000.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Sorry, my
So
brain's still broken. How did neither of you how had neither of you seen Need Gone in 60 Seconds?
it's weird, Kat. You're absolutely right to be baffled because I feel like I'm gonna love it. I'm not avoiding it. I just never kind of came across it. It has Angelina Jolie and Nicolas Cage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds fun.
it
I'll have
has
to
an
do that.
amazing cast.
Yeah. I'm just not a car person. I've never really like Fast and the Furious. If those weren't so ridiculous, it would not draw me.
Yeah, and I think that's why with this, I'm not surprised that Need for Speed does this well because it is a very different approach to racing.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an appeal in a lot of those. Like people were staying with one was playing a whole bunch of Forza when we were there, which is a little bit
Yeah.
too real worldy for me. But like I'm definitely always been, as far as racing, much more a fan of like Cruis'n USA than I am of Mario Kart.
Okay. Well, Mario Kart, we talked about this on past episodes, but it used a revolutionary type of graphics called Mode 7. It allowed the system to rotate and scale a background layer. So, Kat, this might be partially why the game's kind of hard on the eyes, at least in terms of watching it move, and especially in split screen mode. So, your character isn't actually moving, the background layer is spinning and sliding beneath you. And I learned, Mike, in my research for this episode that your position in 3D space in Super Mario Kart was determined using a proprietary chip called DSP-1, which was capable of floating point and trigonometric calculation. Any idea on what those words mean? I'm pretty sure I know what trigonometry is, but floating point calculations, is that just how to figure out where something exists in 3D space?
Floating point is basically that you're dealing with decimals rather than dealing with integers.
Oh, this always becomes very mathy, I've noticed. Well, and so to give the illusion that these characters are in fact in 3D space, each sprite was drawn from 16 different angles and at various sizes. And this simple concept changed video games as an industry because Super Mario Kart was originally just a generic go kart game. But the developers thought that the generic characters became too muddied and hard to read when viewed from certain angles and especially at a distance. So one of the devs suggested that Mario would create a more recognizable visual, and the rest is history. This was the first game to feature Mario as a playable character outside of a traditional Mario game, and then that gave birth to countless spin-offs, and it cemented Mario as the highest selling game franchise of all time. And it was all just because of this, hey, maybe Mario would be easier to see. And I thought that was really fun. And Mario Kart, super huge franchise. Without spending too much time on it, what do you guys think of the ride? Because I know a lot of listeners might not have ridden it yet. I thought it was really impressive how the Mario Kart ride sort of incorporates animatronics and also overlays it with a sort of game screen on your visor. Did you guys like it?
So we haven't ridden it since the park officially opened.
Right. You saw the preview, like the special insider preview.
Yes, so we went to a preview night, and unfortunately, when we rode the ride, the loading room screens didn't work.
Oh, so it didn't explain how to play.
So we didn't get what we were supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, what Kat's referring to is that you aim shells by just looking with your visors and pressing the horn to like shoot. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so we had no idea what we're doing. So I didn't actually enjoy the ride because I
Oh,
couldn't work out. Even though we paused a couple of times, I couldn't work out the mechanics of it.
yeah.
It was cool to go through, but I'm like, I'm missing something.
Yeah.
I do want to go back in. Unfortunately, the ride is still an extremely long wait time most of the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and I don't have that kind of patience.
Mike, did you like it?
Somewhat. I don't recall it being nearly as taken with that as I was with more of the world that they'd built around it.
Oh yeah, like the Mario restaurants and the little interactive like animatronics that kind of dot that part of the park.
I would say even not necessarily the interactiveness of it, but just the honestly, I appreciate how much of it is practical. And so on some level, the ride kind of trying to do this augmented reality thing wasn't quite as appealing to me.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, because the Mario area in Universal, it has like fully animatronic piranha plants that I swear they're like a two-story building size. Like they're enormous, and then like actual coins, spinning in the air, but they're physical. Like you could touch them if you want to get kicked out of the park, which I guess would probably be Kat's job to kick you out if that happened.
No, because I don't work in that area. So
Ah, okay. So, as far as trivia for Super Mario Kart, this is my favorite one that I found. The awards ceremony. Mike, Kat, did either of you guys play enough to get to the sort of podium moment at the end of a cup?
Yes. I'm kind of
Okay.
hoping that this explains why there's a giant fish.
Well, the giant fish is just a Mario character that, would kind of float around and suck up items in one of the other games. But did you notice that Bowser or Peach were swinging champagne bottles in sort of kind of a strange way? Did you encounter that screen?
Not with them.
Okay. So Bowser and Peach at the end of a tournament will just kind of swing these two bottles back and forth, but that always struck me as sort of an odd animation. And TIL, in the Japanese version, Bowser and Peach down the champagne. But Bowser waterfalls it into his mouth until it's fizzing out the front, and Peach gets all blush in the face from the alcohol flush reaction. um, I'm not surprised they took it out, but it is gonna come up later as like this strange sort of what's it called when you like turn something adult? Sort of scandalizing the Mario characters in the Mario Kart franchise. So I got a chuckle out of that. Let's go into the Joy Pros of the game because I have a feeling you guys are gonna have a lot of Joy Cons about this one. I think that you know it's the world's first kart racer, and to me, it's easy to see why this literally created a new genre of games. To me, it's colorful. It's got a lot of character to it. Sound effects are really exciting. You shoot a shell and it's like boo, and it like has this like nice whap sound when it hits you. And I thought it controlled surprisingly well. I didn't struggle too much with sliding around corners. At least when I was playing alone, it felt a little worse when we played together. Is there anything you guys like about this game?
I would agree with you in that as far as the handling, there was sort of precision that it felt like it did have. And I think I was using Koopa because I had the recommendation that Koopa does not spin out as easily.
Oh, where'd you learn that?
That's a great question. I cannot
It was just
remember
in your head.
where.
Gotcha. One of those schoolyard secrets.
Honestly, I think that came out of Facebook in the last like couple weeks for me
Huh. Okay.
in discussion on this game.
so this one, honestly, I was like, I don't know why I liked playing racing games.
So you really hate it.
I struggled with the controls. The controls are not intuitive.
And by that you mean like when you're steering, it doesn't really feel like your cart is reacting the way you'd expect it to.
No, the buttons that you press are the wrong buttons.
Oh, because the B and A are swapped.
Yeah, and the fact that the item drop is the A and not the trigger.
Yeah.
I was really struggling to get to drop items because I would have to take my thumb off the accelerator.
Yeah, that's true. I always kind of rolled my thumb to hit it as opposed to removing it entirely, but the trigger is a much better system. You're absolutely right.
So the like as I said, for this one, my opinion is not great.
Yeah.
So on the pros on this one, I'm guessing that as it probably was great as a. Honestly, I wonder how different it was playing, as I said, on a CRT television versus a
Right.
digital television or an LCD.
Just to see if it's like a bigger comfort for you.
Yeah, because I wonder how that muted the colors because the colors are so vibrant.
The colors, Cat. The colors.
The
I don't know if you
colors
got that
hurt my
commercial now.
eyes
Yeah.
because it's just so bright.
It's so bright. And you know, something else I liked about it, you know, these collectible items, I kind of got to give this game credit for it. It's this really novel concept. I can't think of any other racing game, especially from the time, that would have had these like collectible weapons. And I thought they added a extra level of engagement to the game that even some modern racing games are sort of lacking. Like I like Forza too, Mike, but like on some level, it's like, man, I really wish I could just shoot a missile at the person in front of me. And you know, this whole item system, it get fine-tuned with adjustments and additions as the series goes on. But this game is unique in two ways. First of all, the item boxes you collect are one-time use. Once you drive over that item box, it's not coming back. So that does give a slight advantage to the people in the lead, because you could run over an item box and the person behind you, in every other Mario Kart game, you can kind of slow down until the item box respawns, as opposed to having to like swerve to get a different one. Can't do that in this game. The item box doesn't respawn. And this is also the only game to feature the feather in the race mode. Did Mike, you want to talk about the feather? Because you seem particularly good with it.
Yeah, so the feather's an interesting one, especially, and I think it's especially because this game does not treat anything as three-dimensional, really.
I explain.
So something like the thwomps that are incredibly annoying and will come up in the JoyCons
Yes.
don't exist as three-dimensional objects.
Right.
They are either on the ground or they're effectively not there.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and
They're not truly rising and falling. They're appearing and
correct.
disappearing. Yeah.
And so there's a lot that just kind of treats as effectively you are on the ground, and the feather allows you to be not on the ground.
Yeah.
Which,
for those who've never played it before, the feather jumps you up into the air.
yeah, and it gives you some real height. I think I can't remember if I have it on something when I was actually recording, because I did stream this.
Yeah.
On Twitch. I think I cut a corner with the feather at one point, and I just jumped over a bunch of lava.
You can, yeah. The feather, it was removed from every racing game in the Mario Kart series after this one, except for a battle mode in Mario Kart 8, because you can really break the track design. You can skip whole sections if you're good with the feather, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, I thought it was very satisfying because it wasn't a guaranteed thing, and because it was very much where it applied, it was very fun because it would be I think this will work. Let's see what happens, and figuring out just sort of where your limits are on it.
Yeah.
So I actually did enjoy that item quite a bit.
And then the last thing I would say about the items as far as JoyPros is that, you know, Super Mario Kart, it's got a battle mode, and you know, it's not very fun. Mike, would you agree with me? Kat, would you guys agree with me? The battle mode on the Super Nintendo, there's no real reason to go to it. I don't think.
I think it doesn't really have much precision. I do appreciate that the manual has two separate tips that are basically look at the other person's screen.
Yeah, screen watching caused a lot of arguments in the 90s. It's a split screen multiplayer game.
There's like 4 tips there on battle mode, and 2 of them involve look at the other person's screen.
Well, and I think they had to say that because if you weren't looking at the other player's screen, you'd never find them. It's so hard to see each other to the point to deliberately shoot at each other. And it's a graphical limitation. I'm still counting it as a Joy Pro, though, because it's there. And other games weren't doing this. Other games, you know, in the 90s, you wouldn't have a racing game and then also this weird battle mode attached to it. It felt special. It felt like a big swing. So I think it gets credit just for the attempt.
Yeah, I think it just suffers that it really doesn't feel like there's the sort of either the precision out of it for what you need for the weapons to be more useful, or that stuff like the red shells sort of aim at things, but not great.
Yeah. The homing shells, well, they're almost always going to hit something. Like,
Yeah, because they're doing much more of a straight line path. They go out a little bit
right.
and then just kind of make a straight line. And on the battle, there's too much stuff.
Yeah, if you look at this screenshot I'm showing you, like every little fleck on the ground is a wall. So you have to really be close up on your opponent to make it kind of worth it. Kat, any love for the battle mode? Did you try it at all?
So I have not, because we did play this. The biggest, I guess, advantage was you, as you said, the graphic issue, you couldn't tell where your player was. The number of times I thought the green shell when they were bouncing around were Mike's character, and I would go for them.
Yeah, because Mike's playing Koopa. He literally has a green shell on his back.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I never thought about that before. Yeah, Mike is sort of disguised as a weapon.
So I would have to like look at the map to tell me where he was, so I
It's
could
rough.
work around that.
Well, so let's stop sliding around it then. Let's get to the Joy-Cons. So, Kat, it hurts your eyes. It makes you wonder why you liked Mario Kart. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest about Super Mario Kart?
I also don't like the controller layout.
Yeah. Control layout hurts your eyes. It's it's not a lot going for it in your mind.
It's also really slow. Like if you hit a wall, it was really slow to let you turn.
Yeah. There's
So
no
if
reverse.
you run off the track, instead of it being a like really quick, I can get back on the track, it would take a really long time. And I'm
Yeah.
terrible at these tracks because there's nothing, because it's so flat.
Yeah.
Staying on the track, I was just terrible at it. And I was like, I don't enjoy this. I'm not liking this. And we played this a lot. And we're playing on 50cc because I haven't played for so long that I just don't have the skill anymore.
That gets even worse because, and granted, this is a limitation of what they could do at the time, but the walls that you cannot drive through are flat to the ground.
Right.
And so they are very difficult on some of these races to actually spot where the edges of walls are. And so there's a lot of coming to a stop because I cut a turn too tight and hit, the pixel corner of a wall that doesn't really stand out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from a game that literally created a genre. It's just a difficult game to recommend if you have access to more modern versions of Mario Kart. And I actually looked it up. 43% of Switch owners have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Like nearly half have that game. So there's an extremely good chance you have a much better Mario Kart to choose from. And I agree with you guys, without any actual 3D architecture, which I understand was not really possible at the time, but it's sort of like trying to go back to watching a silent movie. It's like interesting from a historical standpoint, but like it's inferior in every other regard. So it's safe to say neither of you guys beat Super Mario Kart.
It depends on how we want to say beat.
Okay.
In so much as, so one of the interesting things, so we've got that this has the 50 and the 100cc.
Yes. Different speeds slash difficulty
Different
levels.
speeds. And for some reason, you can beat the 3 cups that it has available on and get gold on them in the 50cc.
Yeah.
And that's it. You do not get access to the 4th one. On
That used to
100
be
on
thing.
100cc, then I can still get gold on the first 3, and that 4th cup, the first track, is basically impenetrable to me because there's some jumps that I honestly do not know how the computer does every time, and I can't get past that 60% of the time.
This used to be a thing in game design. I don't know if you guys remember that, but like you'd be playing through a game on easy mode and you'd get like 2/3 of the way through the game and it'd be like, you want to see the real ending? Play on hard mode, you loser. And like, so to me, that's what they're doing. They're making sure you can't see the last tracks until you, as kids would say, get good. So I'm not totally confused by that decision of not letting you play all the courses on the lowest speed. It's definitely something they abandoned in every Mario Kart since this one.
Yeah. I think where it's an issue is when a element of your game is leveraging multiplayer.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
It's no longer, it's one thing to be like, this is a single player game, we expect you to do this. But if the idea is like, play this with people and then you make it in a way that you can't play it with people,
Yeah.
that is a frustrating thing. To the credit of Nintendo Switch Online, the SP mode at least does start with gold on all the cups, so you get access to everything.
So what do we want to consider beating these games, you guys? Do we want it to be that you got a gold cup in every tournament, or do we want to be it that you rolled credits?
I think roll credits.
Okay. So that being said, did you beat this game, Mike?
No.
Okay.
Did you?
I intended, Mike.
Nintendo.
And Kat. I actually got the gold in every one of these, but I rewound like a fiend. I was rewinding, every time I would screw up a turn. I really cheated to accomplish this, but I still had fun ish.
Yeah. I will say, I also found it really frustrating that I noticed it with this, that it is, first of all, each of the characters, the other racers, gets their own ability that it seems they can use rather a lot.
Yeah, Yoshi's ability to lay an egg. What are some of the other ones?
Luigi's is a star, which is incredibly frustrating.
Wait, like the power star?
Yeah.
The dun, 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 dun,
Yep.
that one, the invincibility thing.
Yep.
Luigi gets that more often, or is he the only one who gets it?
He can just because I think the other characters aren't picking up random weapons. They each have one thing that they can do. So I think like Toad's is a poison mushroom, Donkey Kong's the banana, Bowser's a fireball.
Okay.
Mario is, I think, also the star.
Yeah.
And almost every race I did, it was having to deal with Luigi and Yoshi as the two that were going to beat me. And
so you're saying it wasn't balanced?
It wasn't balanced. And Luigi with that star would basically turn into, if he made any contact with me, I was out of this.
Yeah. Sense he's flying.
So like that was very frustrating, as well as I think the way it handles, again, a thing that impacts you differently from the other racers is the coins.
Yes, they speed you up if you get more of them, and if you get hit, you drop some and they're now slower.
Yeah. And that was particularly brutal, that like any contact with another racer would lose you a coin.
Yeah.
And I think it's if you're out of coins, you'll spin out. And it was situations where I'm like, if I hit Toad, that should not be a penalty to me and not to Toad.
Right. Yeah, you're incentivized to avoid the other racers, which is kind of like the opposite of bumper cars and therefore not very fun.
But if Toad would hit you, you would still lose the coin.
Yeah,
so that's like capitalist bumper cars.
It was the house always wins, basically.
Yeah, unfair.
Yeah, and so it made it very frustrating to the point that I didn't think this was particularly fun racing against them.
Okay.
I was doing time trials, actually motivated by another gaming podcast, the Retro Gaming Lads. We're doing a Mario Kart mini tournament thing where people posted their screenshots of their lap times.
Did you compete?
I did. And I brought up the rear by a good 5 seconds, which is roughly what I was expecting.
That's not terrible, though.
Yeah. I played until I got a point where, like, okay, if I submit this time, this is not that embarrassing.
Yeah, it's like you gave them somewhat of a run for their money.
Yeah, I think it was vaguely in range of the back and a fast enough time that I think the first person wouldn't have lapped me. Which does remind me, 5 laps on this thing also feels slightly grueling.
And 5 courses per cup.
I'm less bothered by that.
Okay.
I think it's because when it's broken up over different tracks, it's like, okay, if that track went badly, I've got 4 to sort of balance things out. Whereas on the race, if you do badly on a lap, often that means you are out of it for the race and you still have to finish. You're just like, well, now I'm definitely not placing well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a little bit of, I feel like more races kind of lets you average out bad runs, but longer laps just means that or more laps just means that you have to be on it longer.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's demands you perform without error for a larger period of time in a way that feels a bit demanding. 100% with you. So, and I think my biggest con, is just the tracks feeling so flat. Like, did you guys have a favorite course? I honestly don't really, because they all kind of blend together to me.
Not
One
really.
one track doesn't feel like, that different from the other. Yeah, you say not really. Mike, did any of them stand out to you in your memory?
I like that island one because that one just feels incredibly easy.
It's just you're going around an island. It's kind of like a big circle.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
this the one I kept falling off?
Uh that was many of them. This is the one that it was
He's like, the answer is yes, but
this was the one that was like beaches and water.
yeah, well,
But did this one have? Was that Bowser's? No, the Ghost Castle where I just couldn't stay on the track.
Yeah, this isn't that one.
I mean that's my issue with a lot of the ghost courses. I feel like those are always difficult.
Because this is so flat. There was some that were like the edges of the track were the edges of the track.
Yeah. Oh, and I suppose we should mention also that this is so we have the first appearance of Rainbow Road.
Yes,
And that Rainbow Road is incredibly frustrating.
it's a tough one because the jump that you can't seem to make without a boost.
There's that, and there's the lack of edges to the track at all.
And if you get squished by a womp, it keeps falling on you, and you can't back up or accelerate fast enough to get away from it. It sort of traps you.
The swamps are just brutal in there.
Yeah,
And it's
brutal.
tough to tell where some of them are in some cases because there is
Brutal.
not really much depth perception.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple spots where it's like, oh, that one is further back than the others that I thought are all in one spot. So it is
Well, my friends,
set a Rainbow Road beginning point, but I'm glad it moved on.
and speaking of moving on, I think we've said a lot of negative things. Can we go on to the next game in our series today?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, guys, let's get something different here. Let's go on to Mario Kart 64. All right, Mario Kart 64 released for the Nintendo 64, of course, in 1997. This is a game that is very dear to Mike and I know, and it seems like Kat's a fan too. Let's read the description from the official emulator on the Nintendo Switch Online Retro Catalog. It says, 3, 2, 1, go! Put the pedal to the metal. That was a good Mario voice, you guys. Did you hear that just now? Put the pedal to the metal in this worthy successor to the classic Super Mario Kart game for the Super NES. With improved courses and a revolutionary head-to-head 4-player mode, Mario Kart 64 is sure to win the heart of any race-driving fan. The game includes 20 different courses filled with dips, valleys, jumps, tunnels, and bridges. Smooth, precise control will bring players back time and time again for free-wheeling fun. Pretty straightforward description. Surprised that they don't mention the battle mode at all. Because, like, I love the battle mode. I know Mike loves the battle mode. I would have thought the description would have mentioned it. So, going for first impressions here, Japanese box art. What do you guys think? I'm showing it to you here. For YouTube viewers, we got Mario sort of in the dead center looking at the camera, and then there's a wheel behind him, or I guess a tire behind him with the different character names. Any thoughts on this cover, you guys?
I think his left wheel is bent.
Yeah. I mean, I think that go-karts at the professional level do have like sort of very independent suspensions on the wheels so you can really take turns uniquely. But it does sort of suggest he might be about to crash or something.
He's very CGI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it very much is pushing that, hey, Nintendo 64 does 3D. and
Right.
it's at the expense of other characters.
Yeah, because they're not even they're only here in name only.
Yeah. What's the one on the to the right of Mario? Mario's
I'm
name.
so glad you asked, Mike. That is Toad's Japanese name, which is Canopio, a
Okay.
portmanteau of Pinocchio and the Japanese word for mushroom, which is Kinoko. Or in other words, it's implying that Canopio is a real mushroom boy. Kind of cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then, of course, you got the Japanese name for Bowser being Koopa because he was King Koopa.
Right. That one didn't strike me because I'm just like, oh yeah, Koopa's a character, but it's not that Koopa.
Yeah, well, but I mean, Japan it was.
Yeah. But it's not
I
that Koopa when I am thinking of Koopa.
You are thinking of a Koopa Troopa,
Yeah, which
not the
was
king
just
of the
called
Koopas.
Koopa on the
Yeah,
previous game.
I get you. Totally get you. So, but I mean, then you got Peach, not Princess Peach. So they're kind of just going for like a last name thing. But I do see how that's a little
I thought that
confusing.
was just casual.
Yeah, exactly. So
I
nothing.
don't acknowledge her sovereignty.
Peaches, 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 Mike and Kat and everyone. Take a look at this cover, though. Oh, this is a chef's kiss cover. I love the North American cover. What do you guys think of it?
I like this one better.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
much better.
What do you like better about it, Kat?
It's more dynamic.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that this one very much seems to have decided to tell a full story to this.
So yeah, it's not just Mario in the dead center. For people who aren't on YouTube, you got Mario racing towards the camera with Wario, Donkey Kong, and Bowser right behind him. So sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, and so what I think is interesting here is on the SNES, you have this cover that's just all 8 characters racing towards the finish.
Yeah.
This, because of the characters they chose, this feels very much like a good versus evil kind of thing of Mario trying to get away, because all 3 of those basically play as, this is my mind, play as villains to Mario at some point. Like, it's not
Sure.
Mario and Luigi racing to the finish line. It's Mario trying to get away from villains.
Antagonists.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Donkey Kong, Bowser, and Wario.
Yeah, it adds this tension to it.
Well, and also like the speed lines, like you really get a sense of speed, probably greater than the actual game if we're being totally honest, but everything is blurred. Wario is like he's either power sliding, but the panic in his face kind of makes it look like he's about to wipe out. Mario has sort of this kind of cocky sort of like, yeah, I got it's almost like the Luigi Death Stare's origin, just but it's Mario, of course. I love this cover so much. Anything else to say about it before I give you some Mario Kart 64 trivia?
Yeah, I think I prefer something a little closer to that feels more race, but I appreciate what they're going for here that has this tension with just those characters.
Yeah. Well, so Mario Kart 64 was directed once again by Hideki Kono. He directed the Super Nintendo version. And this game was debuted to the public at the 1995 Shosenkai Software Exhibition as Super Mario Kart R. And it went through some big changes before commercial release. The mischievous Magic Koopa Kamek was originally a playable antagonist character before he was later replaced by Donkey Kong once they worked out the deal with Rare. Donkey Kong took Kamek's spot. And it would not be another 25 years until Kamek would finally make his way as a playable racer in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So I thought that was kind of cool that they eventually did him justice. And we mentioned earlier about Super Nintendo Mario Kart censoring Bowser and Peach's drinking habits. Well, this game also had some interesting illusions originally. There were billboards in the original game that were parodying real companies. So Yoshi One, yeah, I got a screenshot here showing Mike and Kat. So Kat, do you get the joke? What is that supposed to look like?
It's Mobile One. My dad used to work for the mobile refinery in Melbourne. That's why I find that
Oh, did he?
amusing.
Oh, you should send him a screenshot of this. That's so funny. So you remember this logo?
Oh yeah, it was on. It was on stuff always at home.
That's so funny. You should get him a Yoshi one. Oh, I don't know. Does your Cat? So did your family game or just you?
My brother more than me.
Okay.
But like we grew up with PCs. Like I can only ever
Right.
remember having PCs.
Well, I'm glad this got a laugh out of you because clearly that's what they intended. And this one, I think you guys are gonna get a kick out of this. Get a load of this one. Kat, would you mind explaining what we're looking at on YouTube here?
So it's Mario Road, I guess. Is Marlboro
Yeah, I'm
packaging.
sorry. I did not expect that to sound so funny when said out loud. I haven't tried to say that. Mario. How'd you do it?
Mario Road?
Mario Bro. Instead of I can't even say the cigarette name. How do you say that?
Marlboro?
Marble. I can't.
Is it
Anyway,
Marlboro?
it's a cigarette joke. It looks like
Yeah.
the cigarette logo, and it sort of sounds like the name. But both of these were removed from the actual release to avoid any potential legal complications. I got this from a Den of Geek article written by John Saavedra, so thank you, John.
I suppose
And
Nintendo was a little bit careful of having things that sounded like trademarked things at this point.
are you talking about the Donkey Kong thing?
I am.
Yeah, so Mike's teasing once again for our upcoming Donkey Kong episode. Nintendo as a company was almost destroyed because of the Donkey Kong character, and its similarity to King Kong. Sorry, Kat, what were you gonna say?
When did the changes come in? I know in Australia, I want to say it's been a while of advertising cigarettes and alcohol at sporting events.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, do you remember? I feel like it was the '90s that they did an end to that.
I feel like cigarettes, yeah, alcohol is still a lot more
Yeah,
allowed to be advertised at things.
right.
No,
Because what harm has
alcohol's allowed to
alcohol
be
ever
the
done?
sponsor, but it's not like especially in Australia, we don't get this kind of signage for
Yeah,
cigarettes and alcohol. I know cigarettes was a lot earlier than alcohol though.
right.
So
And
that would also be getting into that kind of timing as well, that you wouldn't want an implied cigarette in a game aimed at children.
yeah, it's not great. And it's also not particularly funny. Like, I don't know why they thought this was worth going for. But maybe you're right, though. It was right on the edge of cigarettes being like scandalous. So,
I mean,
yeah,
I think they
there you
go
go.
for it because it does evoke the exact sort of like branding you expect to see at a racing event.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. This game also features a number of infamous shortcuts, such as leaping over the barriers in Wario Stadium. You can hop over the titular Choco Mountain if you know how to do it right. But perhaps most infuriating slash interesting, there is an easily replicated glitch in the tunnel of Calamari Desert, which is one of my favorite courses. Do either of you guys know what I'm talking about? The Calamari Desert tunnel trick?
I don't. I mean, I know that it actually, the manual does point out, like, don't be in there if there's a train, even if it is a shortcut.
Right. And I saw that in the booklet as a kid in the 90s, and I was like, the tunnel's a shortcut? Cool. So then I tried it and I was like, I can avoid the train, but you go in the tunnel, it's all fenced in. There's no place to hop off the track and cut the track. So I never understood what this was until literally today. May I explain to you guys?
Please do.
There is a glitch where, and it's very easily replicated. So I'm showing them a map right now from the booklet of Calamari Desert. So you see the start line and you go to the right and then you go up north and then you head west and then you see the first railroad crossing, right? You guys are following along?
Yes.
Yeah.
So on the way to that first crossing, there is your first chance to get weapons. It's over there on the right-hand side of the screen, little circle. So you can get items here. So the trick is that you let all the racers get ahead of you so that you are getting the most powerful weapons, which would be, what would you guys guess?
I'm going with the zapping.
Good guess. Kat, you need a special weapon to trigger this glitch. This is a stupid. I shouldn't quiz you guys because there's no. But I'm just curious if Kat can guess. It's not the lightning you need.
Then it's got to be the other one.
The ghost?
The star. Strangely
Oh,
enough, it's
no.
weird. So here's what you do. So you get the power star at this first thing. You go to the first railroad crossing. You turn left and go into the tunnel. Right. You wait until the little guy comes down and says Lakitu, and he says, "Hey, turn around, turn around." If you turn around and activate the power star, it will think you have crossed the finish line and completed a whole lap. So you can essentially skip a lap very, very easily using the tunnel. And I did test it and it absolutely works. And I'm really mad I didn't get a chance to use it on you because I forgot. So, but definitely next time you're playing, or maybe like we can fire it up after this recording. You got to see this. It's pretty wild. Guys, I love Mario Kart 64. Let's get into the JoyPros. I think in many ways it's a perfect racing game. I think the controls have been improved and expanded. Like the description says, it plays a lot more smoothly than Super Mario Kart. And you've got this scalable boost with the drift mechanic. You can hold down the power slide button, and then by kind of turning back and forth as you're sliding through corners, you can build up the color of your smoke to the point that you get a much bigger boost at the end. And it also added slipstreaming, which is an actual NASCAR technique, or maybe it's just a racing technique in general, because I think actually bikers do it too, where you get right behind the person in front of you. Now they're hitting the wind resistance and it's not affecting you. So you can pick up speed and then slingshot around them Talladega Night style. Fair to say, guys, you agree this game controls better?
Much. It's
Absolutely.
also better control placement. Like the buttons you're pressing makes a lot more sense.
Now, on the Pro controller for the Switch Online, you've got your right bumper or the R button as your slide, and then you've got the ZL button as your attack button. Use the items because it's essentially trying to evoke the feeling of the actual Z button on the N64 controller being on the back. Mike, what was it like to finally play this game again with a real proper N64 controller?
I will say, first of all, thank you for the controller.
You're welcome. Merry late Christmas.
There's an element of both. It works very well on this game, but also just using this controller again for the first time in quite some time. My first thought really was just like, I can't believe this was ever what a controller was like.
In a bad way.
Yeah, it's just such a weird design
Layout.
thing,
Yeah.
but absolutely works well here. At least on this one, I feel like it did feel like the controls for this game were fairly solid on the regular Switch controller as well.
Yeah, I was wondering if you preferred one or the other because I've heard people say like, yeah, the Nintendo 64 Switch controller, which I got Mike for Christmas in case you can't tell listeners, it's good, but the joystick on the N64 controller is not as comfortable or as good as the Pro controller, so it's kind of a step down for some games. Would you agree?
I can see that comment on the joystick.
Yeah. Like it was novel for the time, but by modern standards, apparently not great.
Yeah, for me, it was fine.
Okay. I also really love the items in this game. They've been expanded to include the ability to have 3 items circling around you. So instead of just getting a red shell, you have 3 red shells circling around you. And it's super cool because you can turn it into this barrage of projectiles like flying down the track, or you can use them as sort of a force field to kind of protect you from other projectiles. Or if you don't think you can pull off the shot, you just drive past somebody and let the rotating shells hit them, in sort of a Mad Maxian kind of moment. I just love the items in this game. You also get new items, the dummy item box. That's really fun for head games. You can put it down in front of the, row of item boxes to try to fool your opponent into picking it up and exploding. You got the golden mushroom, which gives you a real big chance because you can just infinitely boost for like I think 10 seconds. And then of course the infamous blue shell, which I learned today was actually created because the programmers learned that if the AI characters bunched up on the track, the frame rate would suffer. So the blue shell is literally a bug fix because it will always show up once the AI starts clumping to knock them apart and keep the game moving at a smooth rate. Isn't that cool?
Interesting.
Yeah. I
That is
love
so
that this
neat.
yeah, this mechanic was born out of necessity rather than like I guess torture.
And
I love the items
I
in
do
this
find
game.
it
What do you guys
interesting
think?
that because you call it the blue shell.
Yeah, or spiny shell, some people call it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it was spiny or spiky in the manual, and it was like I've
Yeah.
always just thought of it as the blue shell. And
Cat,
was
will you be the tiebreaker? Blue shell, spiny shell. What do you think of it as?
Honestly, I thought it looked purple, so
That wasn't one of the choices.
I guess spiky makes sense.
I have a little game about the weapons in Mario Kart. Do you want to do that after we talk about Mario Kart 64, or do you want to take a little uh, two-minute break here to talk about it? What do you want to do, Mike?
let's do it now. Let's do it as we hit it.
All right. So since we're talking about items, I thought it would be fun. Let me go to my next slide here. Can we make a Mount Rushmore of Mario Kart weapons? Now, listeners, I'm including all items in the Mario Kart series because it's gone on so long. There's more than just in this game. But if there were 4 Mario Kart items to sort of represent what those weapons or those special abilities are like, which ones do you guys think would make the Mount Rushmore? Kat, you want to start us off here? Which one of these strike you as iconic? And then we can kind of support or veto depending on how we feel about it.
I'm gonna say the shells, but the problem is there's 3 options. They're probably
Right?
the red shell,
I
or
mean,
the green shell.
but what about but Blue Shell? Like Blue Shell was like had its big moment in the movie, right? And I had the same thing. This is why I wanted to talk about it because I genuinely don't know which one it would be.
I think we should come back to the shells because that's the hardest one for me.
Okay. So then, Mike, which
The first one that strikes me as a very iconic, evocative thing is going to be the lightning bolt because
lightning bolt?
because that moment of just like, this is going great. We're all shrunk. Dang it. Just feels like so much of a Mario Kart moment to me.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say it though because it doesn't strike me as like, uniquely Mario Kart. Like iconography wise, if you showed any of these other ones to a random person, they'd be like, "Oh, that's a Mario Kart thing." But just the lightning bolt by itself, I get mechanically it's cool that it shrinks everybody regardless of placement, but it doesn't scream Mario to me. What do you think, Kat? Yes or no on the lightning bolt?
I would say yes,
Damn,
just because it is one of those things that
I don't want to play this game anymore.
you remember using.
I'm really mad about this. I'm so childish. All right. Well, can I say that I think you gotta get um the banana peel? Like I feel like it is unique in that it's like laying traps for your enemies, and I think it's so cartoony, and it's appeared in every Mario Kart game. I think the banana skin, as it's sometimes called, is very, very Mario Kart. Agree, disagree?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't seem too enthused.
Yeah.
You can disagree. I don't know if it's worth it, but I mean, it's this or like I want something to represent laying a trap for your enemies, right? Everything else like has different functionalities.
You
So,
said like that this was supposed to represent like all of them, right?
I mean, I don't know. It's not like the Mount Rushmore. The actual Mount Rushmore represents all of the country,
Yeah,
but
but I meant our choices are
sure.
do
Yeah,
not
that's what I'm intending.
because the item box trap is not even on here in your
Yeah, it's because it's
options.
only appeared in Mario Kart 64.
All right.
But that wouldn't make the Mount Rushmore anyway. It's only been in that one game.
I guess I coming back to the shell thing, I guess the spiky shell just for I think
The infamy
because
of it.
the infamy of it, and I think because that does specifically scream Mario Kart in a way that, a green shell doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, green shell could be sort of like any Mario game.
Yeah.
Blue shell, it's like you're playing a Mario Kart thing, and you're probably mad. Well, then, would you guys agree then? I think our fourth and final item has got to be one of the mushrooms because we haven't had a speed boost one in here yet.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Cat, mushroom.
I guess.
The other one that's a speed boost is the star.
Oh, the power star. Oh, I
Yeah,
kind
this
of
is
want to
why
go
I
to.
said guess, because I'm like, I also want the star.
Yeah, I want the star too. I mean, that's such a good.
The star covers a speed boost also, so I think it fits what you wanted.
Now, is this where I make a case that you ditch the lightning bolt and do one of the mushrooms?
I mean, it's also the where you make that case and then fail to sway me.
Don't get. I'm good with this. Do we want to get cheeky and say it's the 3 bananas so we have that level as well?
Honestly, I want the 5 bananas where it's a full line behind you.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, that's unique in Mario Kart 64.
And then if someone
It,
hits that when you have all 5, it does the bowling pin sound and you lose all 5 of them in one go.
and it scatters all over the
Yeah.
place. That's great. Yeah. Well, and I think that it doesn't when you get that, it just looks like the triple banana peel, right?
No,
Like there is no
it's a
triple.
bunch. It's a bunch of 5.
Oh, so there's 3 different types. There's 1 banana, 3 bananas, and a bunch.
I think on 64 it's 1 and 5.
Huh. Well, I'm good with this then. So here is the old switcheroo Mount Rushmore of Mario Kart items. We've got the triple pack of banana skins, the blue shell, the lightning bolt, which I do not support, and the power star. And if you haven't ridden the ride yet, plug your ears for 10 seconds, okay? Guys, I got chills at the end of that ride when you get the superstar and like the screens make it look like you're kicking into full speed. I love that moment. Did that hit for you guys?
Did not. Like
No.
just it didn't
No,
it's not a thing I remember.
Oh,
as I
okay.
said, I need to ride the ride again. I am just waiting for it to be less insane.
I get you. I get you. All right. Well, so let's get back to the tracks. God, I love the tracks in Mario Kart 64. They're iconic. They're fun to explore. And they have all these little elements that really not only put you there in terms of like place, but also has sort of gameplay and strategic implications and effects on your race. In Koopa Troopa Beach, you have this rising and falling tide. The railroad crossings in Calamari Desert, there's parts where every racer is slamming on the brakes and waiting for a train to pass. I can't think of any other racing game that's had that moment where we're all having to stop dead in our tracks and we're all collectively waiting. And it's this really cool, tense moment that I really love. Moo Moo Farms has the minefield of chubbies. The I couldn't say that with a straight face. You guys know what I'm talking about? I don't think I have a screenshot for it. The chubbies and Moo Moo Farm. You know what I'm talking about?
Do you mean the moles?
Every other game, they're called Monty Mole. But as Mike could back me up on, the booklet for this game calls them chubbies.
Although they are much less annoying here than they were in the SNES, where they just latch onto the front of your car
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
there's no instructions telling you what to do.
Yeah.
So then you do 2 laps with a thing stuck to the front of your car because you don't realize if you keep jumping, eventually it'll shake off.
But in this game, it's a thrilling moment because this, if you hug the corner, you're gonna go through all these little holes on the ground where the mole might pop up and totally send you flying. So you can play it safe and just take the long way around them, but to get the best line possible, you gotta risk it. That is good track design. That split second.
In Mario Kart 64, Mole whacks you.
Yeah, very wow, man. Was that a Soviet Russia joke?
Yeah,
Oh, timely. Nice.
yeah.
Um Toad's Turnpike. The cars, the civilian traffic, these huge big rigs and buses and other cars you can run into. And then in mirror mode, they come at you. When I was a kid, that was such a genuine thrill, realizing that I'm driving against oncoming traffic. Like, I mean, I can't say enough good things about this game's
And I think
tracks.
on this one, it allows fortunes change very quickly on a lot of these, and in a way that feels like you can take advantage of, not just that it's taking advantage of you. Or
Yeah.
something like on Toad's Turnpike, realizing you can hug the railing and get between some vehicles and the
Yeah.
railing to get through areas. I think I had something on this one where like on like the last like quarter lap or so, I went up 5 places to win
Dang.
by some weaving through everything.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. There's also Yoshi Valley, which when you're
Is
racing against other
evil.
players, it's evil, right, Kat? What's evil about it?
I kept falling off the sides.
There's like a lot of sections with no rails. But it's even more sinister than that because instead of a straight line like most tracks in almost every racing game, this is like a maze. Like you really have to like plot your course through all these different snaking turns and intersections, and the game won't even show you what place you're in until the end of the race. It's a question mark for everybody. And you can kind of intuit by looking at the map and figuring out like, okay, about how far behind am I? But what a simple and ingenious way to make this track stand out in my mind. I can't think of any other racing game ever that has hidden my place from me in the middle of a race.
And definitely
my
hits
favorite.
It hits a thing also with this one where I'm just like, I legitimately do not. I think I got better at it, but I'm like, I don't know how I'm supposed to go through this, because the first way that I went is like went through, maintained speed the whole way, and then I'm in like fifth, and I'm like, the heck happened there? Like
Yeah.
I entered this in first, and so it's clearly like certain paths are better, and I don't know which. I improved on that,
Yeah.
but I'm very much like, I don't know which is the way that is the good way to do this.
The other thing I noticed with this one, which is really interesting, is when you get returned to the track, you don't necessarily get returned to the track facing the way you need to go on the track.
Yeah. Like K2 doesn't even know where to put you. It's really, really wacky. Any favorite? Do you guys have a favorite? My favorite in this game is Donkey Kong's Jungle. It has so many cool elements. There's a cave section. There's this big suspended bridge. But my favorite has got to be this jump over the river. And there's like this big steamboat that's going back and forth on the river. And you can jump over it or you can jump into it. But oh, it feels so big budget Hollywood movie moment. And I love this track. Do you guys have any favorites?
Wario Stadium.
Yeah, the kind of dirt bike, sort of excite bike style.
It
Yeah,
definitely has a much bigger feel,
Yeah.
and this was much more playable. It was much more enjoyable because of
Yeah.
that bigger feel.
You mean like you got more room to maneuver?
But not only that, is like you're kind of not looking at the horizon the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to take in.
Can you
Totally
believe
agree.
that Rainbow Road in this is 2 kilometers?
Yeah, the booklet gives your length. And that was a thing that, this game technically has less tracks than the Super Nintendo one, but by distance, it's a bigger game because some tracks are much, much longer.
Well, and also every one of these is its own thing. There's a couple that feel similar,
Yeah.
but really they're their own style, their own aesthetic,
Yeah, very
such
well
that
themed.
it's not we did 3 that are all kind of the same with a slightly different layout and just numbered up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kat, did you have a favorite track or was it also Wario Stadium?
I actually really liked the beach one.
Yeah, Koopa Troopa Beach.
Yeah.
I hate that
You do
Even
the
though I
shortcut
was
though.
shortcut on that
terrible
one?
at it, I did that.
I like that one's fun too. It has a fun shortcut where you can head to the right and kind of cut through this area with a bunch of crabs, and like at times you're fully submerged in the rising tide, but it's a much faster through line if you can sort of risk it. And then that is one of the tracks that features the guaranteed blue shell. If you take that huge jump and you actually jump over the titular Koopa Trooper rock, that'll be a blue shell every time, as will the item box that is dangling from the Luigi hot air balloon in the very first track. That's also a guaranteed blue shell.
That would require being able to get onto that rock because I tried every single time and I
Yeah.
kept falling off.
I can't even get the one that's the ramp into the side of the rock all the
Yeah,
time.
though you like jump through the waterfall.
Yeah, like I did that, or you come out to the waterfall. I did that the first time perfectly fine. I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. And then the next time went up it and then just fell right short and got passed by 3 people. I'm like,
And you're like, yeah, something's inconsistent here.
yeah,
Well, so, I mean, I could go on all day, so let me just kind of cut to the chase. I think that like visually, this game still holds up somehow. I feel like it has this really appealing combination of 3D polygonal tracks, which look really good on high def television. It looks so much sharper than I was expecting. But then the characters, the weapons, those are all these really highly detailed sprites. But it doesn't look really jerky to me. I think it's just so visually appealing. I love how this game looks. What do you
yeah.
guys think
And
about
actually,
it
that reminds me, I'm going to
visually?
change my favorite course.
Oh,
because I think this is valid, I'm going to switch it to block fort.
Okay, well, let's get into that. This game's battle mode is amazing. Mike, we love this game. We've loved this game since we were teenagers. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, so I think this battle mode has the right balance of there's a lot of environment to work with.
Let's describe it for people who've never played it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so in block fort, which in retrospect, I think the colors are meant to represent the battle modes from the original. But so the battle mode is this nice and simple. Everybody starts with 3 balloons, and
which are tied to your cart, like literally tied to the back of your cart.
Yeah, and it's very simply hurt everybody else until they have no more balloons.
But the balloons is a great life-keeping mechanic because you can instantly, in a moment, visually see how close to death your opponent is. And then also, you know, it literally ties you to the game world because it's not some heads-up display life bar thing. Like the balloons are swaying with every turn, and so it seems more satisfying to hit somebody and their little balloon starts to flow away. And guys, do you guys remember being a little kid when you'd lose your balloon? Wasn't that the most traumatic thing?
I do not remember losing any balloons. I would imagine it would be
Mike's
unpleasant.
like, I don't lose my balloon. Kat, did you have balloons in Australia?
Yeah, but
they float downward there. It's
well, my comment was going to be, my dad's a sailor, so he knew how to tie knots.
Yeah. Sailors would be very familiar with knots.
So, like, we could actually, you know, properly attach balloons to either ourselves or items, and they wouldn't float away.
Australia takes balloons very seriously. There's a whole movie about a guy that just attaches enough balloons to a chair to float off.
Well, that's a real story, isn't it?
I believe it is as well.
I'm not sure about the movie. I thought that was an American movie.
All right, we're getting off topic. Block fort, battle mode.
Yeah. So you have a base level to it that's bounded in by walls on the far sides, and then you have these four squares, one in each quadrant, that have
towers,
ramps up, and then there's another tier to them that has another ramp up to that, and you have bridges between the adjacent blocks, and so
towers, yeah.
It doesn't feel narrow enough to be a tower.
Okay, they're forts.
Yeah, and so it's very easy to tell where opponents are between the map and the colors.
Yeah,
on
the
there.
Color coding is a stroke of genius.
Yeah, I think that's pulling from SNES, did the same colors.
Yeah.
And it is just an incredibly satisfying thing. Also because, and this does something that is so great and more games need to do, is if you're playing with more than 2 people, when you lose, you are replaced with a bomb. And you can go and crash into anybody and take 1 balloon off of them.
Yeah, it's a bomb with wheels. They call it the mini bomb cart in the booklet. But it's like this wonderful like kamikaze moment. And it's great because like when you're killed and you're turned into a rolling bomb, you can't win. But I know Mike loves this. He'd rather ruin your day. You know what I mean? Screwing it up for somebody else is more satisfying than actually getting that victory. And, you know, once you run into another player, now you're out for good. But modern games don't.
It also still keeps you in the game. You're not just watching.
Right. And it's hilarious too because like there's one thing that can kill the bomb and that's the superstar. And it's this great moment of the hunter has become the hunted when you're zeroing in on a player and then they get the superstar and now the bomb is running away. Oh, it's this great like cat and mouse game. This is the most fun vehicular combat game I've ever played. And there's so many games that are devoted to vehicular combat. Twisted Metal, Vigilante 8, like, but it's never been better than this. And for those who've never tried it, it's like imagine like this really cartoony tank battle, but the tanks are like moving at the speed of like, you know, well, go-karts. It's just so great. And Mike praising this block fort level, you know, with the different tiers, you can go all the way up and you can snipe down to enemies below you, you know, so the high ground is an advantage, all of Star Wars. And then the alleyways in between each fort become this hellscape of ricocheting green shells and banana peels. And you play for long enough, it's like you try to avoid even going down there. To this day, I'm impressed at this game's ability to keep track of a ricocheting green shell that I fired like 10 minutes ago. And it just keeps bouncing around the whole time. I feel like most modern games, things disappear after, I don't even know what, 30 seconds or so. So sort of the permanence of this game, I think, is still really impressive. I love the battle mode.
Yeah, it basically allows this to sort of push towards like a not quite a sudden death type of thing, but it means that as this goes on, it gets more likely that you will accidentally hit something.
Yeah.
And so it kind of automatically wraps things up.
In a really fun and silly way, though. It's like you're hoisted by your own petard so much in this game mode, and that's another thing that a lot of modern combat games won't have, you know. And in fact, right before we recorded this, Mike and I were playing battle mode, just the two of us, and I fired a homing shell, and Mike, like a freaking Hollywood action movie star, zipped around me and got behind me fast enough that my own homing shell, while trying to hit him, hits me instead because Mike has adjusted its path and put me in the way of it. I have a recording of it. I can't wait to show you guys. It's so wild. Well done. I'm sorry, Mike. Cat, I cut you off. Do you enjoy the battle mode?
I don't love the battle modes. I prefer the races have a more concrete goal.
Yeah.
Battle mode's a little bit too much. I'm just driving around in circles trying to get items.
Yeah.
But that is because I am not good enough to actually actively be attacking the other players.
Yeah. Mike and I played this game a lot, and I think we're like a bit better at maneuvering, but just by sheer years and years of practice. We would play this game over and over again. And we'd play this map, Mike, until like 1, 2 in the morning sometimes. Yeah. You remember those days.
Yeah, no, because it's this, there's 3 others. Double Decker is kind of neat because it's all stacked up and there's a lot of ramps up and down.
Right.
And then the other 2 are both sort of circular maps with holes in the center that I'm less thrilled with. And I think it's because actually both of those, because there's ways to fall off, it means that there is a release valve for way too many shells. And that's the selling point, is when suddenly, you know, there's 20 shells bouncing around and you're like, I do not want to be down here. I'm going to die.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely removes some of the wackiness. So how about JoyCons? How about things we don't like? You know, as nearly perfect as this game is, I gotta mention how much I hate Banshee Boardwalk. This track, it's in the final cup of the game, and it's just full of these narrow platforms that have no rails. And so I'm constantly flying off the track and into the water, and I feel like I'm being punished for going too fast, which I hate when a racing game does that. It's like, let me go as fast as I want. Don't make it so impossible to, you know, keep my top speed. And then there's also this middle portion of the track where you go through like this haunted castle, and the architecture of it, the turns are so sharp that like the camera kind of collides in with the environment in a way that doesn't feel intentional. It's kind of the one track where I was like, I would have gone with one more draft of this. Is there any track you guys really hate?
I did not like this one much. This took a lot of time to deal with. The other one is probably Sherbert, or both. I guess Frappe. Frappe was worse than Sherbert, but those are both pains.
Frappe is the snow level. Sherbert is like the ice level.
Yeah, or I would think of it as Sherbert was where I crashed into penguins a lot, and Frappe was where I crashed into snowmen a lot.
Yeah. The penguins though are real tough because they'll actually waddle back and forth and slide, and sometimes will seem to go straight for you. The snowmen at least are stationary.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Kat? Any tracks in this game you can't stand?
Anything that doesn't have railings on the edges, so I keep falling off.
Yeah,
which does lead to one of the nice things here is this Rainbow Road has rails.
Yes.
But it's transparent.
So why is that bad?
So if you're not familiar with it, I couldn't follow the track.
Seeing more of the track and it gets a bit disorienting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at least it's
gotcha.
It's not, it doesn't feel punishing. There's an adjustment necessary, but it doesn't feel punishing the way the SNES one did.
Well, I also like the Rainbow Road in Mario Kart 64. It has that huge jump. You just go flying off, and like you catch it feels like almost 10 seconds of straight air time. And if you don't hit it straight on, you're flying slowly off into the void of space. So that's always fun too. And then the chain chomps going around, definitely a lot less annoying than the womps. This game, its frame rate can dip considerably when there's too many players on the screen at once. To me, it's never enough to lower my enjoyment of it, but it does kind of make you wish that they do a modern remaster. And then also they could fix the problem of there being no music in the multiplayer mode. To free up RAM, they removed the music, and it kind of just feels a bit empty. I guess you'd probably fill that silence with smack talk or laughter if you're actually playing multiplayer, but the music is so good in this game, it made me sad it was gone.
Honestly, I think it also works in that sense because it means you hear the sounds of things bouncing around and stuff.
Yeah. Which is kind of okay for battle mode, but you don't need that as much with the straight up race.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then if it's not in the straight up racing either, I did not notice.
Yeah. It just kind of makes these really iconic tracks have a little bit less character. But those are my Joy-Cons though. Like I don't have too many. This is, if you can't tell, this is one of my favorite games. This is probably top 10 for me. Anything else to complain about with Mario Kart 64? Any other cons?
I found this much better than the SNES. This one I could actually win.
Yeah.
And it changes up which of the computer characters are winning too. It's not always the same ones.
So it feels a bit more like an actual race.
Yeah. Actually, because I do not have any cons for this game.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. So on to the final game.
Before I was going to ask, so if you like this game so much, did you beat this game?
Thanks for asking, Mike. I Nintended. Oh, that was a close one. I almost forgot.
Yeah. And so that means that like you got gold on 150 on all the cups, right?
Well, to clarify, we said you just had to roll credits, but I have also done that, yes.
Okay, but yeah, you did that and got credits.
Correct, I rolled credits.
So did I.
Oh, whoa, not even, here we go. Mike Nintended. Hey, Kat, did you ever beat this game?
Nope.
No.
we played the Mario Kart that I disliked most, and because I was so frustrated with it,
we started with the SNES.
And that was probably a bad move.
Right, kind of soured it for the rest of the experience.
Because I didn't want to play because I'm like, I can't get my brain around these controls.
And your eyes are physically hurting, so it's just like...
Yeah. And then the other night we played this one and the next one, and I'm like, oh, I'm actually going to come back and play these again, where I will not go back to the SNES one.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, my friends, anything else to say about Mario Kart 64 before we head to our last game for today?
No, I think we're ready to move on to the last one.
Then let's go on to our final game for today, Mario Kart Super Circuit, released for the Game Boy Advance in 2001. All right, according to the official description in the Nintendo Switch Online emulator, it says kart racing is back and ready to kick it into high gear. Speed through 20 courses and hidden bonus tracks, each loaded with classic power-ups and primed for the free-for-all racing that only Mario Kart can deliver. Each character has their own unique racing skills. Find your favorite or master them all. Wield all of the best items from previous Mario Kart games, including bananas, red shells, and the fearsome spiny shell. Burn rubber in the Grand Prix, race your own ghost, or shift gears for the mayhem of battle mode. The power's in the palm of your hand. So that is the description of Mario Kart Super Circuit. Pretty straightforward, I think.
Race your own ghost is a great phrase. If you don't know what that means, it just seems weird.
Yeah, that's true. In a way, aren't we all just racing our own ghosts? For those who don't know what that means, Mario Kart games and a lot of racing games, in fact, have a ghost mode where you try to set your best time, and then on the next attempt, you can see a transparent representation of you from the previous race. So you can see exactly where you took the turns and potentially where you screwed up so that, you can visually see if you're going faster. The Speed Racer movie has an amazing homage to this feature. If you haven't seen it, Speed Racer, Wachowski
Yeah.
twins.
The Mario
I guess
Kart
they're
movie.
called.
That movie is both better and worse than it should be.
Right? Yeah. It's like really hard to pin down in your brain, but definitely it's one of those movies. If you haven't seen it, dear listener, you gotta watch it just to have an opinion on it. Because it certainly won't bore you. So let's look at the box art for Mario Kart Super Circuit. Not a lot to say about it, you guys. I don't think so anyway. You got Mario Kart here. He's Mario's dead center looking back this time. So now the kart's facing away from you. And I always hate when Mario is made to look tough, like badass Mario. It just like it reminds me of like gangster Tweety. If you guys have any idea what I'm talking about, like that weird trend in the 90s where like Looney Tunes characters like wore a lot of like chains and like baggy clothing and they try to have like an edgy look to them. I don't know. It doesn't work for me. What do you guys
The
think?
90s were weird.
The 90s were a weird time, weren't they? Mike, what do you think of this cover?
It just feels very profoundly meh.
Yeah.
It conveys Mario is in a car,
Yeah.
and clearly it's a racing thing because we've got like the laurel back there.
The laurel, like little like winner's wreath sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. The North American box art, it's very, very similar. It's just, you don't have the little kart racers in the corner showing that it's a multiplayer game, but they just tell you it's multiplayer. I think because of the blue background, you at least have the color contrast. So I would give the edge to the North American box art, but it's hard to muster up too much feeling for
Yeah,
either one.
that's a win by default.
Right.
Like it's slightly better with the blue, but it's not doing much.
Yeah. Kat, any thoughts on these covers?
Neither of them are really super appealing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not great. A rare miss, Mario. Well, so Mario Kart Super Circuit was published by Nintendo. It is the only game in the series to be developed by Intelligent Systems. Most games are developed by Nintendo directly, but Intelligent Systems made this one. We're going to see them again, Mike, when we do our Paper Mario episode. Paper Mario, a fantastic and kind of the only RPG on N64. And also they worked on Super Metroid. So if you look at their gameography or their list of works, it's really impressive. They've had their hand in a lot of great Nintendo games. Super Circuit was one of 24 titles to use the mobile adapter GB. Mike, I'm always excited to show you some new peripherals. Any guess? It's not that hard to figure out, but like, what do you think this would do and how is it going to connect to Mario Kart Super Circuit? You or Kat have any idea?
Not sure I understand the question there. Like, it's got to be something for connecting multiple Game Boy Advance discs.
You'd think
right?
that. No, you're wrong.
For connecting a controller?
No. This would connect your Game Boy Advance to your mobile phone. And it was so you could upload your best times to like a global leaderboard, which is kind of cool, but also like,
What phones were you connecting to? You like your Nokia?
it was a proprietary mobile phone of which Nintendo had partial ownership of the company.
Gotcha.
So it was only a very specific type of phone. It was sort of their attempt to kind of, get more people to buy the phone, and the people who have the phone will buy the Game Boy. Wasn't super successful. It is interesting though because it has only about 24 games, like I said, but it does have a version of Silent Hill, which our friend Chris and Crystal, we have a big relationship with this series. There was a choose your own adventure novel that you could play on your Game Boy Advance, and I'm not sure how it connected to the mobile phone, like what the purpose of that would be. My guess would be so that you can see like the choices people made. Cause like I said, it's just a choose your own adventure. It's not like you're gonna have like a score or anything, but it was there. The other bit of trivia I found for Super Circuit involves a man named John Houliton. Houliton did narration for Wave Race 64. When we get to Wave Race 64, Mike, we're going to hear an actual person announcing the lap number, the winner, the loser. The legend has it, this is according to a post on VGFacts.com, while this guy was recording lines for Wave Race 64, he was handed new material that he did not receive in advance and said, hey, can you read this? Without being told what it was for. So he did, and apparently that some of his lines were used in Mario Kart 64, not only without his permission, but without paying him for that. So he was furious, especially since Mario Kart 64 spelled his last name wrong in the credits. He was immortalized as John Huraton with an R instead of Huraton with an L. And so this led to a really strained relationship with him and Nintendo. And the footnote of the story, it didn't happen until 2020. A YouTube channel, Did You Know Gaming, reached out to him to ask him about his involvement in Super Circuit, the game we're covering today for Game Boy Advance. His voices were used in that game without his consent, without paying him, without his even knowledge. So he discovered his voice was in a game. And so the tweet goes, imagine not knowing you were in a game for 19 years. Isn't that wild, you guys?
That feels like an oversight somewhere.
You think so, right? I don't know. I just thought that was sort of interesting. There's not as much said about Super Circuit, but let's focus on some pros, some JoyPros. If you're viewing this as a direct sequel to Super Mario Kart, I think there's a lot to be said for this being a step up. It's got brighter colors. The sprites are a bit more detailed. They have like a bit of shadow and shading to them, kind of trying to look similar to the sprites that were used in Mario Kart 64. And the tracks feel less flat. This game, to be clear, for those who have not played it or watching on YouTube, it feels like a step back for the series because we no longer have true 3D tracks in polygonal space. We're back to this flat Mode 7 style graphics because that's what the Game Boy Advance could handle.
Yeah, although I think they do two things that make it feel less like that.
Go for it.
One is that they actually use the backgrounds to have things going on that interact.
Yeah. You're talking about not the track that's sliding beneath you, but the actual horizon line has different things to see when you turn.
Yeah, and so like you've got on one of them where you have a ship out there that starts to fire things that come onto the track. One of the others has a volcano that is causing debris on the track. So
yeah,
that certainly helps. And I actually think
sense that you're somewhere else.
Yeah, that it feels more three-dimensional. And I think the other thing that helps, even though the walls are not always great still, is the question boxes, the item boxes being 3D was great. I wish the coins weren't in the game, but given the coins are in the game, I wish that those had a similar thing to be clearer where they are. And because by having that, it sort of shows you where the track is. And
there's also like they're not actual 3D, but they're sort of like standing up obstacles. Like there's trees on the side of a track that you could run into. And, it's kind of looks like a pop-up book, honestly. It looks like someone just folded up a piece of cardboard, but it's better than the first game, So at least looking at a pause screen, there's more to see.
That had some of the pop-up things too, like the pipes and stuff.
I guess, but they just felt not only more prominent in here, but also you could interact with these ones. So like there's a level I'm showing you here where you drive through this desert at the sunset. And aesthetically it's kind of a cool one, but there's these like teepees. And if you drive through the teepee, you come out the other side and there's like a shy guy clinging to you now. You got to shake him off a little bit.
I mean, that's the same deal as like when that happened to me, I was prepared because it happened to me with the stupid moles in SNES.
So yeah, I guess you're right. These were represented in the first game, but just to me, the game felt less flat, but still pretty flat. And Kat, you said this one hurt your eyes as well?
Not as bad.
Yeah.
You say brighter colors, but it's not actually brighter colors. It is more colors they use.
Good point. Very good point.
And because you have more gradients to a color, it's not as harsh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think you said that perfectly. It feels more vivid, but you're right. Bright is not the term because it's literally not a brighter looking game, but it is a more painterly sort of appealing game to look at. I think, at least in a pause screen.
Yeah.
I also think, this controls better than you'd expect. Like the Super Nintendo game before it, it's sort of surprising how you kind of can slide around turns. You can, for the most part, go the direction you meant to. And this game also started the trend of reusing old tracks. This features a bunch, if not all, of the tracks from Super Mario Kart. And this would be a staple from the series going forward. After Super Circuit, every Mario Kart game would have an older version carried over from it. So I thought that was pretty cool, to see the start of that trend of like remastering tracks.
Does it not count then when for the N64 when you had Rainbow Road again?
Well, but it was a different layout.
Okay.
Yeah, those are different.
Okay, so these are same layout, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. I should have clarified. Sorry. Yeah, same layout, but visually boosted up to the sort of like how in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you have like, oh, this track is from the Super Nintendo, but it's three-dimensional and you're going up on the walls. There's anti-gravity section, but the top-down bird's eye view of the track is essentially the same.
Ah, okay. I
Yeah.
I treated them as more or less different.
Yeah. That's kind of
This
about it. I
this
have to
was the
say
game
about
that introduced me to the spin turn, which I didn't know was a thing in these.
what, like hold down A and B to just spin in place.
A and B and turn to a side, and it does a much sharper turn than you get out of like drifting.
Well, I would do that in battle mode, but you're saying there's incentive to do it during a race?
Sharp turns. It was useful in situations where the drifting would take me too wide, and I needed to make it sharper.
I'm gonna try this right now.
So some of those turns that were like some of the hairpin turns, it ended up being a lot more useful than trying to drift around those and taking them too wide.
Oh, I just tried it. Yeah, that is a much tighter turn.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I feel like in like those really annoying tracks, we're like, oh, this is a 90-degree angle. Okay, let me just. Would you call this spin? Was this something you found out in the manual?
Yeah. It's introduced in the manual as a spin turn.
Huh. Super cool.
Yeah. Didn't know it was a thing. It's like, oh, that is actually helpful.
I didn't know it was a thing until literally 30 seconds ago. Was that the extent of what you liked about this game?
I think so, yeah. It didn't feel like it stood out as such.
Yeah. Kat, anything you liked about Super Circuit? I know you're not going to be a fan based on how you talked about it, but
Actually, this one isn't too bad because the controls are more intuitive.
yeah,
They don't hurt my brain to make it work.
right.
There was one issue with the controls, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. I mean, it's just doesn't feel as good to play regardless, but it does kind of feel like, okay, this is sort of a remake of the Super Nintendo version, but with a lot of the things that made Mario Kart 64 better.
I think there's also some element to credit with which was at the time this was a how can we give you Mario Kart portable?
Right. The very first portable.
Yeah, and the answer now is the Switch already is portable with
Yeah.
the other games. So you don't need we've cut some corners to make it portable.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue into the Joy-Cons. Like, it feels like a step back for the franchise because, like, you got the Switch, you even got the Steam Deck, which has parity with like Xbox, Series S and X and PlayStation 5. Like, the Steam Deck is such a powerful machine that we don't really have mobile gaming as its own category anymore. So this sort of feels like a game out of time, I think. It's a backstep that was understandable in 2001, but in 2023, like,
Yeah.
why would you go to this one?
Yeah, I think the most I have as a con is that it brings back the coins, which I do not like.
Yeah, it feels. I've always thought the coins felt a little unnecessary in Mario Kart. I mean, in Mario Kart 8, you unlock new cart pieces. You can customize your ride in those games. So collecting coins will get you more of those, but beyond like an unlockable mechanism, I agree. Not a fan of the coins.
And
I'd
honestly,
rather
even
not
in
have
that
it.
case, you could just as easily do it by like points earned in track finishes.
Yeah. But like everything I didn't like about Super Mario Kart, it's still here for the most part. It's got the flat sort of tracks, you which now feels like, well, this is released what, 4 or 5 years after Mario Kart 64. So like even though it's portable now, you actually, Mike, you full on forgot this game was released afterwards.
I don't think I
Like,
forgot. I didn't realize. I didn't
because
have
it feels
this.
like, yeah.
Yeah, or because I just think Game Boy, and it's like, oh, that's older, and I don't really think about how long Game Boy in some form goes for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but there actually is a way in which this is graphically inferior to the Super Nintendo version. The Super Nintendo game rotates the track. Like, so like we said, you're not really turning because it's not a true 3D game. The layer that represents the track is spinning. You guys still with me?
It's a good trick.
Yeah.
So in Super Nintendo, it would rotate at 60 frames per second. This game had to knock it down by half to 30 frames per second. And the rest of the game is 60 frames per second. So like the horizon layer Mike was talking about, that moves smoothly, the items move smoothly, but the actual turning has half as many frames of animations as the Super Nintendo one. So if you play one right after the other, this one will actually feel a bit jerkier and still fully playable.
Did not notice that at all.
Yeah, it's like the brain sort of blends it together because it's like we said, a more vivid looking game, but technologically not as good as Super Nintendo, and I think it kind of takes a hit for that reason. And the battle mode just wasn't very fun, and it feels worse now because like the first game is like, well, good for you, you invented battle mode. This is coming out after the perfection that is Mario Kart 64's battle mode. So some part of it felt harder to forgive and harder to give, sort of automatic participation points for. Again, even though it's portable now. Like, unless you're on the bus, like, yeah, I would never play this game at home if Mario Kart 64 was an option. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that really is the one key thing is it was meant to be portable, and that's no longer a selling point.
Yeah. But I mean, there's other portable games that are just fun on their own and don't make you wish you were playing a different version. This just wasn't one of them. Kat, any Joy-Cons about Mario Kart Super Circuit?
Nothing that's coming to my brain. I think we went from this to we went we kind of progressed. So I played this and I'm like, I can't multiplayer with Mike, but this is such a level up from the one I have just played that I seriously appreciated this because we played this before we played 64.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And, we should also mention, because she said I couldn't play multiplayer with Mike, that's because on the Nintendo Switch Online retro catalog, you can play Game Boy Advance games multiplayer, but only against someone who has their own Switch, because there was no split screen mode. Even though, let's be honest, it's 2023, they could fake it. They could run two of these on one screen, no problem. But Nintendo is not doing that.
There's a
I don't
little
know.
bit that you have to handle on that. So I will grant them that one, that for just adding stuff to this, I think it's understandable.
It's understandable, but also feels just kind of like, these games are so old, you can't make this, you should be able to have an easy access to this. I mean, the real crime is that you
Counterpoint
guys
here.
can't.
The
Yeah.
counterpoint here, though, is would you play that local multiplayer if you also still had access to Mario Kart 64?
And that's the thing, is that to get access to this game on Nintendo Switch Online, you need the expansion pack, which includes the 64 emulator. So this game is coming bundled with the much better game.
Yeah, so I think at that point, then it's not exact. That doesn't matter to it either.
Yeah. Yep, I hear you. That's all I really have, is that like my cons are kind of contextual, but they're pretty big contextual cons.
Yeah, I'm
So
going to slightly ask. So first of all, you mentioned how many tracks there were, and that mentioned extra tracks.
yes.
Where were like secret tracks or something?
Well, the final cup, doesn't it only unlock when you get gold in the other ones?
Oh, is that how that? All right, right. Because it said 20. There's 4 regular cups and then a fifth, but
Right.
there's 5 tracks for each cup. Is that what that was?
Correct. Well, I'm
Okay.
loading my system. So I'm guessing you never saw. So there's the mushroom cup, flower cup, lightning cup, star cup, and that's all you start with.
Yes, I was
And
thinking
then
of those as only having 4, not 5.
correct. Yeah, they have yeah, 4 apiece, and then the final one you unlock is Lakeside Park, Broken Pier, Bowser Castle 4,
Yeah.
and the Rainbow Road.
Okay. Yeah. That I forgot how, or the 5 tracks to a cup isn't. It's not a wrong choice. It's just a weird choice to me.
Yeah. So any other Joy-Cons about this game? I mean, I feel like it's very well made, but it's just feels kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think my last question with this one is, did you beat this?
Oh, Mike, well, hold on, wait a minute. And that means rolled credits, right?
Yes. Yeah, yes, and then I'm going to ask you what the stipulation there is because I'm curious.
Well, it doesn't matter because Mike, I did beat this game. Because I rolled credits, but in the final special cup I unlocked, I got silver. So I got gold, 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 silver. And I was just like, I know that Mike's going to make a snarky comment about this, about not really beating it if I don't get all gold, but I just couldn't be bothered to try again. This game is
Which engine size?
150.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the difficult one, but I didn't quite get all gold.
Okay. Because I did beat this on the 50cc with all gold and wasn't motivated to go back up.
But did you see the credits?
Yes.
Congratulations. Hey, Kat, did you beat this game?
Nope.
Not that you can't. I just didn't get the sense that you did, or
No, like the only one I'm
tried.
probably going to go back to is 64.
Yeah, yeah. Well, guys, I think that's actually a great segue into our final segment. Any other thoughts on Mario Kart Super Circuit before we wrap up this episode?
I don't think so.
Kat, you good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, guys, let's go on to our final segment, which we are calling NintenDO or NintenDON'T. We're declaring whether each game is worth your time as we make our way through all 200 plus games in the Nintendo Switch Online Retro Catalog. Let's go in chronological release order, starting with Super Mario Kart. As the world's first kart racer, I think it really deserves a lot of credit for literally creating a genre. And I think it has two strong things going for it. It's interesting as a milestone in gaming history. It's the very first Mario crossover game. It created a genre. It was the first use of this sort of fake 3D racing with multiplayer element. The very first one was F-Zero, but this was the first one to like really blow up. And this game is available at the base subscription price of $20 a year for Nintendo Switch Online. So for that reason, it's a Nintendo for me. I don't expect very many people to play through all the tracks since they look and feel so similar. But Mario Kart is a global phenomenon and it's so ingrained in gamer culture. I think it's worth a look since you probably have access to it right now anyway. So, not necessarily because it's fun to play, but because it's kind of worth seeing where it all started. I think it's Nintendo. Kat, what about you?
I'm going to be a don't,
Yeah.
mostly because of the things I complained about earlier. It is a cool element of history,
Yeah.
but sometimes cool elements of history are fun to look at, but not necessarily fun to experience.
Right. So you can appreciate it without actually having to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, so wait, would you say you're a Super Nintendo though because it like physically hurt you, or are you going to give it enough credit to be just don't do it, but don't super not do it? This made no sense. Do you get what I'm saying?
I don't like it is cool for what it is. So like if that is your vibe, check it out.
Yeah.
But if you are just looking for something to play, then this would definitely be like a don't.
Yeah. Mike, what about you? So tiebreaker, I'm a do, she's a don't.
For as many, so I have a bunch of issues with a lot of things in this.
Yeah.
I kept going back to try
But
to beat stuff. So, like, something in there is working. So I think I've got to go a Nintendo on this one.
yes. Yes, yes.
As much as things frustrated me on this, there was this drive to try to get through this. It wasn't enough to shake me off and just give up on it.
Okay. So a Nintendo, you can't quite put your finger on it, but it's there.
Yeah, I think something about the mechanics of the handling is enough for this to work.
Nice. Okay. So then that's a two Nintendos, one Nintendo. So that one ultimately lands in the favor of Super Mario Kart. Let's go on to Mario Kart 64. I simply cannot say enough good things about Mario Kart 64. It's fun to look at, it's fun to play, it stands the test of time. It has a huge amount of variety when it comes to the tracks, the weapons, the gameplay modes. I don't think I've ever picked up this game and not had a good time. it's not a Nintendo. It's Super Nintendo doesn't feel like high enough praise. Mike, our guest war boss Ryan Lay there, he was saying that there's a NintenDON'T 64. Can I give this a Nintendo 64?
I intended to as well. So yes.
Yeah, it's so good. It's one of the most perfect games I've ever
It
played.
is, in my view, it is by far the best Mario Kart I have ever played.
Yeah, and it's weird because a lot of people they frown on it. They put it like not even in the top 5 sometimes. I'm like, really?
And a big part of that is this has the best battle mode, which is so often either underdeveloped or just sort of a afterthought.
Yeah, and the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe puts a lot of effort into the battle mode, but it's just, I mean, when that game originally released, it didn't even have any special tracks. You just did battle mode on the regular tracks of the game, and it was terrible. The deluxe version they released on the Switch has special maps. It's still just not as fun. It's just there's something.
It's a combination of they still try to run that with what 16 characters on there when you're
Yeah,
doing the battle mode. So partially I think it's that, and it means that there is a simplicity to the battle maps in this game, that there's enough to work with, but they don't feel overly complex.
yeah.
That I think is a problem that plagues some other multiplayer level things, where it's just like, this is now too big, too complicated, so that the level is getting in the way. It's not aiding anything.
All right. So that's two Nintendo 64s. Super, super high in our books. Kat, would you say this is a Nintendo?
Definitely the Nintendo. Having only played these three plus eight, I would say this is better than eight. I think eight has too much going on.
Didn't you play like the Mario Kart and like the DS or something?
Yeah, but I think but isn't that the same as the or is that a different version? Yeah, because I used to play the DS.
It's its own game, but it like at that point they had started borrowing tracks from a lot of previous games. There's a lot of similarities. The DS one, I believe, is the one that added the hang gliding. Oh no, wait, no, that was 3DS. Man, there's been so many of these games.
Yeah, I was playing on the DS, so I had the two screens.
Yeah. Well, so that could have been the 3DS, which there was a Mario Kart 7 and 9, I think, were on the DSs.
I don't remember.
It's okay. So, where on the scale of Nintendos is this? Is this a Nintendo, a Super Nintendo, or a Nintendo 64, Cat?
Probably a Super Nintendo for me.
Nice. Heck yeah. Well, I think that like that means this is officially our highest rated game because we have like two Nintendo 64s and one Super Nintendo. That's
Yeah, it
pretty
does help
good.
that we only recently created that highest tier, so that does give it an advantage to get
Well,
there
we didn't
first.
even create it. Yeah, Ryan created it, but I love it. Well, so I don't think it's going to quite hit those highs, but Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mike, why don't we go with you first?
I think I'm going a NintenDO'N'T.
Yeah,
As much as there's some things I like about this and it's playable, I can't feel myself wanting to go play it.
yeah. Cat, Super Circuit, Nintendo or Nintendo?
I want to ride the line on this one. It's more playable than the first one
Yeah.
for me, so I would be more of a do. But it's nothing on the 64,
Okay.
and like even like later versions. So this would probably be a don't.
Oh, well, final answer is, do you think it's worth our listeners' time to try it
Oh
out?
no,
And
unless yeah.
I'm struggling with it like you are,
If you are a completionist and you need to play everything, maybe play it. But otherwise,
but you're not, so it's a Nintendo.
yeah, there's better versions. So a Nintendo.
Yeah, my heart it breaks for this game. Like it's well made, it's on paper it's enjoyable, but it just feels like a game stuck out of time. It lacks the novelty of being the premier Mario Kart title, but also lacks the much more enjoyable tracks and modes and weapons of its predecessor, Mario Kart 64. As much as I'm a fan of this series, this entry just really fails to stick in my mind. I'm never drawn to revisit it. And it's only available at the upper tier of subscriptions to Nintendo Switch Online. You got to get the expansion pack to play this game. But if you do that, then you have access to Mario Kart 64. Why would you choose this game over it? So for those reasons, although there's a lot that it does well and deserves credit for, I gotta give it a NintenDO'N't. I think without the novelty, you could play Super Nintendo Mario, you could play Mario Kart 64. This one's, I think, is kind of skippable. So, guys, this was so much fun. I had a great time talking to y'all about Mario Kart. Mike, it's always fun talking to you. And Kat, it was especially lovely having you here. Can we hear about your YouTube and your cross stitching one more time?
So yeah, so I'm Kat. My YouTube/Instagram is KatCanSew, KatCanSew, all one word.
And do you do tutorials for cross stitching, or are you just showing off your creations?
At the moment, it's mostly just me talking about my stuff, what I'm working
Yeah.
on. I do want to get into a little bit more tutorials and stuff, but right now I brain.
Yeah, it's all good. And what's your current project? Let's tease the listeners that they want to join us here. What are you working on right now?
Honestly, I'm trying to finish 4 projects before the new year. I just have beating to go. So I've got a couple of big projects, which is a really old lavender and lace Celtic Christmas, and then
Ooh,
some smaller current Mill Hill seasonal ornaments that I'm trying to get finished before
that
the end
sounds
of
lovely.
tomorrow.
Well, now that I know your channel, I will definitely see how those turn out. Can't wait to see it. And guys, speaking of channels and checking things up on here, this has been the Old Switcheroo. Thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe or to comment below. You can join us at theoldswitcheroo.com. That's www.theoldswitcheroo.com at the end. And from there, you can get the links to our Discord. You can leave us an old timey voicemail. You can find the links to all of our social medias. We Zeet, we Gram, we Tube, we Talk, and we would love to hear from you. So be sure to join us next time for our season finale. Mike, we did it. End of season 1. We're going to be given our 16th bit retrospective as we cover these superstars and NintenDON'Ts of our first 16 episodes. It's been a lot of fun. I've had so much fun making these with you. And one last time, guys, this has been the Old Switcheroo, where we've been gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I've been Mike.
And I've been Jaymo. Game on, everyone. What are you working on now?
I'm trying to edit my whip parade.
Your whip parade?
So yeah, I did end of year all of my projects that I'm currently working on.
Explain what the word you used means.
Yeah, because whip
Work in
parade
progress.
sounds way kinkier than I'm expecting, probably. I don't
Work
know.
in progress.
Oh, work in progress. Yeah, that little H changes a lot, doesn't it?
The advantage of having cordless headphones is I can bring them with me and still hear you guys.
Oh, I don't know if taking our sound with you is necessarily a good idea. Great plug for a podcast, though. Wouldn't it be terrible to hear us on the go? Like and subscribe.